your source for news from NAB 2018. Indie Shooter, brought to you by Akidio, Band Pro, Blackmagic Design, Carl Zeiss, Panasonic, and Schneider Optics.
Hi, Clint with Indie Shooter, continuing on our coverage of NAB 2018. I'm here with Mitch Gross of Panasonic, and the thing that has taken us by storm for the last, I guess, almost 12 months now has been the EVA1. And you guys recently did an update to it. Talk a little bit about what that update includes, and then tell us a bit about ProRes Raw.
The timeline it's all pretty condensed when you think about it. It was last year at NAB. It was under a little cloth, like, ooh, something coming soon, and everyone's taking pictures of, a thing under a cloth. And then it was at Cinegear that we actually even said what this thing was. It was only started shipping back in October, and here we are in April, and we already have had a big firmware update. So we had a couple little things, we added little tweaks here and there, and then we had a big firmware update. We called it EVA 2.0 because it's almost like a rebirth of the camera. It's so new, but we already made all these changes and additions to it. Some of them were announced, and some of them we kind of had like secret sauce to it. So the first thing was the internal recording codecs. When the camera first shipped, it's long GOP recording formats, and they're still there, and they're terrific. The thing with long GOP is that it's a very efficient codec. It takes very little space on the card, so you can get a lot of record time. But because it's a group of frames across which is the compression as groups, it means that your computer has to look at that whole group to actually be able to process the files, at a time. So it's more computer intensive. You need a bigger machine often to be able to really work with the files. So we also now introduced all-eye compression. That's intraframe, meaning that each individual frame is compressed on its own. It's a larger file. It doesn't get as much record time on a card, but it's much easier for a computer to work with, and so you can maybe work with a laptop instead of a desktop station, that kind of thing. So we have both in the camera, and they're both, we offer either way to work. Also for internal recording codecs, when we started showing the camera around to people, we really looked at this as sort of a production style camera, but we had a lot of broadcast clients who were also really interested in it for news and stringers and just different types of production work. They wanted to have it for broadcast. So a lot of those guys are all about interlace. And we're like, okay, we want an interlace camera first. So we added interlace recording, 1920 by 1080, in 50i and 5994, both in all-eye and in long GOP. And all-eye is 100 megabit, and long GOP is 50 megabit, which is sort of that magic number for a lot of the news crews, because that way it's a smaller file that they can transport around, quickly download and stuff. So again, that was something that we had never planned on doing, but people decided hey, we really could use this. So engineers found a way to be able to squeeze it into the camera, got that in there too. And then of course, on the opposite end of media recording is the raw output. So now we've enabled raw out. You can switch the SDI feed to be a raw out, and you have 5.7K up to 30 frames per second, 4K up to 60 frames per second, and 2K up to 240 frames per second. Now, different things you can do with that. You can take that raw, you can convert it in a recorder into video and capture that as regular ProRes or in DNX HD or HR or whatever, depending on the resolution. You can also take that raw and turn it into a Cinema DNG uncompressed raw data file, and that's available. Or you can take that raw and capture it in a compressed raw format, which is the new ProRes Raw. And so this is an Atomos Shogun Inferno, and it does that. They also have the Sumo 19 that'll do that desktop station. You can take that raw file, and what they have enabled right now is the 4K up to 60 and the 2K up to 240. They're going to have the 5.7K to 30 available next month, and it's just the firmware they had to get that done. So they take our raw data stream and they turn it into this new format of ProRes Raw. It's two versions, ProRes Raw and ProRes Raw HQ. When you do that, you are using the great standard of ProRes type compression, but they're applying it to a raw data structure. So it's a sister to what is ProRes Video is ProRes Raw. And it's very efficient. It takes between the two different ProRes Raw formats, it's 3-to-1 or a 4-to-1 compression, and it's a very clean. That's a very gentle level of compression. You get a lot of record time on here, but then you also load it right into the new Final Cut Pro X10. You know, which everything just came out yesterday, and it just works. It takes all of the science and figuring out, you know, that, well, from this camera, then it needs to have this applied to this thing, to figure, you know, like, what is my configuration or whatever. You just drop it into Final Cut, and it's going to recognize from metadata what camera it's coming from and what kind of file it is. It's just going to just works. And the only thing you need to adjust at that point is to say, well, what LUTs do I want to apply? What image transform? Which all of our Panasonic standards are already loaded into the system. You can always load your own like personal LUTs, your own style, the look and stuff, but it's all built in and sort of ready to go as a preset. So you just go with it. You go from camera to recorder to post system as one simple, straightforward system. You don't have to go and learn all this fiddly bits to it, you know. So it works very, very efficiently. It's to me, I kind of like raw for the masses, if you will. It's, you know, it just works very in a professional environment. You don't need to have special skills in order to figure out how to even approach it.
Do you feel like there's as much control as you have with RAW? I mean, or is it pretty similar as far as like what you can achieve in grading?
Yeah, you know, there's people started saying like, well, wait, you know, when you apply your LUTs, you know, when you, how can I make this adjustment, that adjustment? And the way that Apple has set it up, it looks like you turn it into video and then you do all your image control stuff, and you're like, well, then why is that? What's that saving me? It's like, no. What you're doing is you're telling it, here's my starting point, and I'm getting it in. I'm saying, here's my standard of how I want to bring it into video. But then when you're doing all these video, you know, image process controls, and they have, you know, they have a new color corrector built into Final Cut Pro X. They've really expanded that use and all the different controls. You're not doing that now to the video. You're still applying that all to the raw file. It still exists as a raw file inside Final Cut. You know, before it gets, you haven't rendered anything out yet. You haven't transformed it yet. So you do all this color correction work. You get, you know, all the, you know, whether it's white balance and exposure and all these different things. They might not call it the same things that you call it in other systems, but all the controls are there. And when you make all those adjustments at the very end, your render, you turn it into, I don't know, H.265 or whatever you're going to output these things for. When you do that, that's the only time you bake in, right? That's the only time you've now turned it into a locked piece of video. And in having done that, you also, because it's all in the ecosphere of the way Apple optimized everything, they made it very, very quick. So your outputs to get, you know, sometimes you can do an edit of whatever project and have whatever layers of things going on, and then you hit, you know, do it, and then you go and have a cup of coffee or a long meal, you know, because it can take quite a long time depending on the scale of the project. It is between 2 times and 6 times faster than other file types that from other companies that, you know, that Apple supports in their system. So, I mean, I'm not going to denigrate anyone else, but what it is that because Apple designed this inherently for their system, they were able to really optimize, and so it's very, very quick on that output as well. So I mean, to me, this is all about, you know, the entire workflow, the whole ecosphere of things, and they're able to, you know, from the camera to the recorder. People always think about like, okay, well, what's that? But it's like, no, think about the whole thing, getting out into the edit system and then out of the edit system. It's all very efficient. It all sort of works. I'm sure over time this will propagate out to the world, and there will be, you know, other post-system support the format, and hopefully they do a great implementation of it as well. I think really what Apple was doing was wanting to control it at first just because they built it for their own system, and so they wanted to make sure that within that world they just made it work really well. So they got it done, and then it's like, all right, well, now we've finished it, and now we'll let other people use it as well and stuff.
What's the difference between the file size of a regular RAW and this ProRes Raw? Have you seen it, or is it?
Well, like I said, there's two different versions of ProRes Raw and ProRes Raw HQ, and it's roughly a 3-to-1 or a 4-to-1 compression compared to the uncompressed RAW. So it's pretty big savings. If for those who are familiar with regular video ProRes formats, the ProRes Raw is in between the size of ProRes in video, ProRes 422 and ProRes 422 HQ. We told people a long time ago that this camera, from the get-go, we said this is going to have a RAW output, right? And so we started working with partners early on, and then our firmware was released a week and a half ago. And then the firmware from Apple and Atomos was announced 4 days ago and released yesterday. So this is all new, but it all works. That's the thing. Yesterday morning, everything got released and it works swimmingly. It all functions very well.
There was one question that I wanted to ask in regards to the practical aspects of working with the recorder and the camera. It needs SDI, not HDMI. Is that correct?
Yes, you use the SDI output, you switch that from being a video output into being a raw data output. And so it's just a menu choice. One of the things we did when we did that is that a lot of people like using the SDI output for like an onboard monitor or an electronic eyepiece, or just another way of seeing the image. And what we have when you're in regular video mode, you can set the SDI to mirror everything you see on the LCD as opposed to being just a clean feed. If you wanted to have all the heads-up displays and all that information you would see on the LCD screen. So what we did was enable that functionality on the HDMI output. So you now have that option. If you're using the SDI for RAW, now you can use the HDMI to have a monitor and be able to see all that information. And there are niche functions that are available in the camera from the get-go, like having infrared photography. Like, are there a lot of people who want to be doing infrared photography? I don't know. Maybe now that it's available, but it was a niche function that we put in there because we just wanted to have a versatile machine. So like another niche function that we wanted to put in to make it versatile is Timelapse. So now it does Timelapse.
Oh, that's handy. That's really handy.
It's just nice to have that, and it's built into the camera. So it's like, I don't need to have another like a DSLR to do my time-lapse shots. I mean, I could, but you can. Now you have it in this camera too.
No, and it's a nice package for producers to add into something without having to hire somebody else or bring in more gear. So
exactly, something so small and lightweight. You put this thing in a backpack and you just run to the shoot. So it's like easy to travel with. In addition to that, there's a number of little functions we put in. Like I mentioned, the HDMI thing. That's a convenience kind of thing, so you can see on the monitor. But we did things like in the menu structure from the home screen, there's shortcuts now to be able to like change your frame rate or go to change your shutter angle, little things like that, where people, when they were talking to us about different just ways they use the camera, it'd be like, it'd be nice if we could do this, and it'd be nice to do that. That's one of those things where I and some others are on the forums and trying to actively talk to people because we want to know how people want to use the cameras. And a couple of suggestions that people said, they're like, it'd be really nice if we could kind of do this, and we're like, that's a pretty good idea. Let's see, talk to the engineers, let's see if we can make this work. And there are some more things that we're going to be working on, but it was one of some of these functions were like, yeah, we could do that, and then we just did it.
You guys did the VariCam 35 and LT update about a month and a half or 2 months prior to this one. That one allowed for people like doing live streaming and stuff like that to apply a LUT that would actually like come out. Does this firmware do that for the EVA1?
There's a LUT that's built into the camera that is just a vlog, the vlog that you can record in if you want to have that flat look, to a 709. Mm-hmm. And that's built in, and that hasn't changed. So it doesn't have the space in the system to have where you could insert LUTs, so it doesn't do that. But of course, you can always send a log output and then go to an external LUT box, and there's lots of stuff that's available for that. And if you want to go into video mode for live stream, you know, I would say you probably go to our scene files, and you can, I mean, there's a 16-point toggle, and there you can do tons of image adjustment to really tweak that picture. Because if you're doing a live stream at that point, you know, you're not worried, you don't need log, you know, what are you doing that for? So you can really wrap that up in many ways, and you really tweak the camera extensively.
There's been a plethora of new accessories that have come out for the EVA1. Talk a little bit about some of those.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, there's lots of additional functionality in the camera, and what other companies have recognized from the get-go with the design of the camera, a lot of accessory companies are like, all right, this camera is pretty versatile. This can do lots of different things. So more and more companies are adding accessorizing, you know, for this camera, because it really, I mean, when you look at it, it's just a little box right here, right? And so it's designed, you know, we did it like that so you could be modular and like stick it onto a gimbal or other kind of rigs, but it was also recognizing, like, you know, we don't need to be the ones to make everything that, you know, all the different ways this camera could function. That's what there's all these companies who do this every day. Let them go ahead and do it. You know, they're going to have, because there's so many different ways you could choose to do it. So like right at the show today, we have, let's see, I don't want to forget it, there's so many. I got Focus, Shape, Zacuto, I'm like looking as I go, Wooden Camera, Airy, Croziel, and Tilta all for mechanical rigging on the camera. And there's some others as well that it's like at a certain point I never, how many can we show? You know, how much room do you have? And those are just different like plates and mounts and power, battery accessory mounts and stuff like that. Like, I mean, for instance, on this Shape right here, this is a hand grip extension that actually goes directly onto where the hand grip mounts on the camera and just extends it out. So that's a very simple process. There's others, including Shape, but from other manufacturers as well, that take that hand grip and make it so you can mount it to the front rods, or you can mount it to a base plate, you know, airy rosette, and extend it out. You have lots of different top plates with mounting on it, different handles, different, you know, things for the IP, the LCD to make it into an eyepiece from the Zacuto or electronic viewfinders. We have Nauticam today they brought over their first prototype of an underwater housing, and it's great. It's only about this big, you know, and it's gonna not that expensive and stuff, and to be able to have a really terrific underwater housing for what is a very low light camera, because again you have the dual native ISO 800 and 2500, so you can take this little camera that's very lightweight, put it inside an underwater housing, and the whole rig together is very, very manageable. Sometimes underwater houses giant things and they weigh a ton. That thing. So this, I was holding it before and I was like, yeah, I can see this. So there's lots of different things like that, including some electronic ones. So there's some lens control things, some things that we enabled. Canon has two compact cine servo zooms, the 18 to 80 and the 70 to 200. Now you could put one of those lenses on here, and from the get-go we would power the zoom and it would interact. But what we also now have is that for separate control of the lens, sometimes you don't want to have to be at the lens or at the camera to control things. So you have on a pan arm, you can have a small, one of those little popular small controllers to do lens and camera control. Right. You know, and so what we did is it plugs into the camera where the hand grip plugs in, and now you not only can like stop start the camera and stuff, but you also have it goes through the camera and controls the lens, so I can zoom it and focus adjust and things like that, and iris. And then we also have, with that, so you have those little controllers. We also have our EVA ROP, which is just an iPad or Android app, a free app. And
it's a Bluetooth, right?
It's actually Wi-Fi. So there's a little Wi-Fi dongle that goes into the back of the camera, and then it'll communicate not only controlling the camera, but also controlling those two lenses. So we have that integration going, you know, everything works together. Croziel has a zoom servo for a couple of, they have it for some Fuji lenses, as well as for the Zeiss 21 to 1.
21 to 80?
No, 21 to
135 or
120.
With that one
lightweight zoom, that's really that nice. That's about a $10,000 lens or something like that.
Yeah.
So they have, and we're actually showing it right over there. Not only does that zoom, they have a pan bar zoom control, but then that zoom control then communicates with our camera's protocol so that you can go, run, stop, and the camera as well. So it all is trying to integrate. There's lots of different accessorizing things like that. They all integrate together. Wooden Camera made a PL mount retrofit kit so that you can then put a PL mount on the camera if you want to work that way. We have Core SWX made a battery that goes right into the camera and then has a P-tap on it, so you can power accessories and you can keep the unit really small that way. Just lots of companies sort of working with us and really climbing on board to say, this is a very versatile platform that you can build out from.
And in just such a short time, so many people, like so many different manufacturers jumping in and being a part of it is really kind of amazing. The camera has been shipping since when? Since August or September?
Since October. End of October we started shipping.
And the prices stayed the same, right? What was the introductory price?
The introductory price is the price. It's $74.95 list, but most places are selling it for $73.45. Now, what we've done, and that's our price in U.S. dollars. That's our price, and the price is still the same. But we do have a couple of specials, some promotions that we are doing, and that sort of tied in with the new firmware. We're like, okay, you now have new ways of recording from the camera, so we want to sort of promote the fact that it does that, but also help ease people into these new workflows.
Get incentive, yeah.
So and make it so that it's okay, you can invest to do this stuff, but it's not. You don't necessarily have to invest huge amount of money to be able to do it, and just make it available for people. So with two promotions, one is between April 1st, so it's retroactive to April 1st. April 1st to June 30th, you buy an EVA1, you're going to get two 64 gig cards, the SDXC cards.
Oh, wow.
So you buy the camera and then you fill out an online form and we mail you a couple of SD cards. So there's your media. And those are V90 class cards from Panasonic that will work with all of the internal recording formats. So all the new all-I formats up to 400 megabit a second. So those work together. And you get two 64 gig cards. That way you can record to one and then swap while you download and stuff. You're able to you're done. You're able to work. Put a lens on. Away you go. The other promotion is because now using the Atomos recorders, we're able to do the ProRes Raw as well as Raw to video ProRes or Raw to Cinema DNG recording, so that you can take it into Resolve and other systems. Because we have those working together with this, we have a promotion with Atomos, again from now, early April until end of June. You buy a camera, EVA1, and together at the same time you buy the Atomos recorder, and we give you instant rebate, $300.
Wow!
And those two promotions overlap. So if you buy the two of them together, you get $300 back, and then you also
get two cards,
and you get two cards. So you get best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's easily $1,000 in value with everything. I mean, $300. The cards are probably like $300.
The cards are a value of $500, and then it's $300 rebate. So you're $800 in right there. It's you're making money.
You are so present on the forums and everything like that. You guys, you don't hide from the customers. You're totally engaging with them, so it's really cool.
To me, it's really important. I mean, Panasonic is a big corporate entity, and it's got factories and staff around the world and all of it. But in the end, it's people. There's only so many people who are involved in the pro video group and who are involved in the design and involved in sales and manufacture and we're just human beings. Like, I met the guy who did the physical button layout design, and and it's like, he's really proud of his work, and it's like, and we're human beings, and people out there shooting are not some gray masses of whatever. It's individuals trying to do their work. As big as this industry is as small as this industry is, and so we want to be able to engage with the clients. Things like adding interlace, that was a simple thing, really. As a request, someone's like, you know what, I'd like to use this for my work, but I need this function, and the engineers are like, all right, well, let's look at the thing. Yeah, we can make that happen, and we'll do it for you. So we want to have the back and forth, because the users are happy, and if they understand, sometimes it's like there's a function there that people just don't realize is available to them. Oh, I can mirror the LCD on the HDMI or SCI. Oh, that makes my life easier. I didn't even realize that was in there. That's why I'm going to talk to you, because if you just put something out there and you don't have a good communication going, you're not serving our interests, not serving your interests. We want to we want to actively engage with people, not just because it's fun. Sometimes it can be a bit of a task.
Right.
That's not a problem. It's really by engaging with each other that we make a better product.
Absolutely.
And you get better use of our product.
And you guys have definitely done that. The EVA1 is available right now, and the price one more time?
In the U.S., pretty much everywhere you look, you're going to find it at $73.45.
And those specials, pay attention to those. And people want to find out more. The website is what?
For North America, na.panasonicpro.com.
But if people Google or they're on social media, there's a lot of EVA1 groups that have popped up on Facebook and everything like that, and it's a great way to find all the info. Mitch is around, and you can ask him all the questions that you want to. He's not. Yeah, you do it. All right, Mitch, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Your source for news from NAB 2018. Indie Shooter. Brought to you by Akidio, Band Pro, Blackmagic Design, Carl Zeiss, Panasonic, and Schneider Optics.